there, sorry from 17 once again. This is my Ys VIII, Lacrimosa of Dana, Inferno walkthrough. Remember how in that other video I mentioned if you go past those two pterodactyls you'll be able to get our friend the sailor there? Well, I'm going to need him to open up the next location that gives us Franz, which is on Vista Ridge. So this is why I'm keeping all that menuing in, guys, so you can see what I'm doing. So I go back and I pick him up, and then with him, I now have enough people to open up this area. At the top of this area, we're going to get our buddy Franz. Franz is like the most badass Fist of the North Star character that you never see fight. He reminds me a lot of a character from King of Fighters. There's a butler in that looks a lot like Franz. And I really wish he was a team member, because I just get the feeling he would have been really cool. There's something really cool about, badass butlers. It reminds me of Alucard, it reminds me of Black Butler, things like that. Just super badass, servile dudes who are really, really strong and really, really polite, and, they wear cool gloves and stuff. But keep moving up here. He's going to be at the top. And then once you've got this dude, you want to interact with him as much as you can, so you can trigger his side quest, because triggering his side quest is going to give us one of the best meals in the game, and I'm definitely going to be using that. But this is the Valley of the Kings, and inside of here we're going to be taking on a boss by the name of Doxer, who is a sub-boss, and then we'll be taking on the main boss, who's called Basilius. This room, or this dungeon I should say, is kind of a douche zone, because it's filled with these knobheads that throw Molotovs at you. They throw this firebomb that has a big active hitbox, and they can throw it at you from the roof above, so there's a floor above us and a floor below us, and if you're ever on a floor where they're above you, they can bomb you from the sky, and they have incredibly good aim. So it leads to you taking a lot of stupid damage out of nowhere, and it's a little bit frustrating. The thing that compounds to some of the annoyance you might face down here is that you can't kill the enemies. So these enemies in this room, I can't kill any of them. If I kill them, they will come back, they'll give no experience, and they'll drop no items, because I do not have an item that lets me do that yet. These enemies count as undead for some reason. The bugs don't. You can kill the bugs, they're fine. But once I get a bell after a sub-boss, it's going to let me kill undead enemies, and it's going to enable us to get the components we need to upgrade the new stuff. Items that you've no doubt seen. Undead this, undead that. A lot of the enemies here will drop them. A lot of enemies in the upcoming area will drop them as well. But for this moment, you can pick up the resources scattered around. There's a lot of essence in this dungeon, which is going to help you on the upgrades. Down here, there are these bosses that you need to kill to light some braziers, or to light some lanterns, whatever you want to call them. Brazier. What's the difference between a brazier and a brazier? I don't know. One of them is a bra, the other one is like a metal thing that holds flame. One of those strange words, isn't it? The brazier. There's so many ways to say it too. And obviously the spelling is very different. One is just like a Z-I-E-R. The other one is like 2 S's, 2 E's, 4 R's and a Frenchman. Like, there's a very definitive difference in the spelling, but when you say it, it all sounds a chuffing same. So right now, that's the door that's going to open when we kill all those dudes on the bottom floor. But before we can do that, we need to get to the floor that has the sub-boss. The sub-boss in this area is kind of an interesting one. He is pretty much a chunky dude with a sword, and all of his moves are really well telegraphed and have very particular timings that make them fun to dodge and block and everything. He's one of those bosses that you're not going to get stuck on, and it's a good job because he becomes an enemy type later on, essentially. But keep on moving through. It is a bit of a maze, this area. It's not too bad though. All the dungeons in Ys VIII, I must say, I never got lost in any of them. They all have a decent amount of flow and logic to them, so that even somebody with a terrible sense of direction like myself can have a lot of fun and get through them. And the biggest advantage that this game did is, do you notice how my map isn't completely enveloped? I have to move around to see what is on the map. That is such a small feature that you don't realise is so helpful when it comes to navigating. Because it's visual language. It's telling you you haven't been there. It's so good and so powerful for a player to understand where they have and haven't been, that when you play Ys VII and all the maps have already filled in for you and you have no idea if you've been there or if you're retreading steps and things, it just becomes a massive frustration fest. This game fixed it. So massive kudos to the devs. I really cannot wait to see what they do with Ys IX, because every game seems to be incrementally changing things, astronomically changing other things, adapting things, altering things. It really is an exciting time to see what they have in store for the PlayStation 4. But you might expect the boss to trigger when you first come in here. If it did that, the game would be a soft lock, because you need this item to kill the boss, and this is the item that lets us kill undead. It is the Purifying Bell. So make sure you pop that on your adventure gear. And then make sure you save and equip all the stuff you need to take on this next fight. So here is Dr. Griel. He has a big overhead like that can actually miss you. It's one of those moves where you have to try to get a flash guard on it, because half the time it misses you if you hug him. His next move is going to be either some horizontal slashes, but he's just not doing them. So there it is. There's his horizontal. The problem with that move is that he'll do it when his back's to you. That's it. See that? He has a turning version of that move, and it has a really deceptive hitbox. That's the only move that he'll hit you with. And then when he backs away like that, he will fire a fireball at exactly where you are. So do the flash guard, chase him down, keep on hitting him. He only has 1 HP bar, which makes him go down very quickly. Here's his stun, because we put him into a stun state. Notice he doesn't actually have a full stun bar. We just hit him so much he gave up a little bit. He's really selling this fight, thankfully. And then now, he's technically in his second phase where he can do a whole host of different moves, but because I'm so close to him, his AI is choosing melee all the time, and it's enabling me to do really, really effective moves. There's his fire breath. This is a very active hitbox, guys, so make sure you get as much as you can off it. And now we've got an actual stun. We should be able to kill him with the extra move here. And that's the end of the fight. Really, really fun fight. Really, really fair fight. Definitely not the most memorable. He was 4 levels higher than me, which is unique because you'll notice I've tried my best to level to the level of the bosses for all of the bosses in this game. And if you're wondering why I did that, I did that simply so that it would be more interesting to watch. The longer these fights go on, the more you realise that all I'm doing is blocking and attacking as aggressively as I can. And once you've seen me block the move a couple of times, you get the idea of what you've got to do. You don't want to watch me fight a guy for 5 minutes just showcasing really good timing, because if I don't, I die in 1 hit. You know, it's one of the things I think that makes this game a lot harder than Ys VII. Because apparently Ys VII Nightmare Mode is one of the easier ones, and I think I know why. It's not because the bosses aren't challenging, because they are, and it's not because the game isn't punishing, because it is. The flash guard in that game is way more bitchy than it is in this game. It's just shit tier, absolute shit tier horrendous, and it just makes the game awkward. However, you don't take damage in that game the way you take damage in this one. And I know this because I've been fighting the bosses recently, and whenever I take a hit, because I'm trying to do them no damage, whenever I get hit, I stand there and I let the boss hit me. In that game, the bosses have to hit you a ton to kill you. In this game, they don't. In this game, you go down in 2 to 3 hits. And admittedly, I'm not wearing the most incredible armors, and I'm not stacking the most incredible defenses and HP thresholds, but then I'm not doing that on Ys VII either. But on Ys VII, I'm getting hit like 7 to 10 times to kill me. I'm actively stepping into AoEs to die faster, and you can definitely tell that it's toned down a little bit. And then of course the difference between Nightmare and Inferno is a jump as well, and they've introduced Inferno to the later games. Hell, that game might even have Inferno, I don't know, but I don't think I'll be playing it because Nightmare's been enough. Some of those bosses are a fucking nightmare, literally. But here is the creature that's going to light the way to open the next doorway, and as you can see, it's just a Doxa guy. It's almost exactly the same as the creature that we just fought, so you've just had decent practice on knowing exactly what he's going to do. The only difference is, this guy's called a Force Garmer, and he drops Essence Stones, Starry Shells, and Acidic Liquid. Essence Stones, of course, are the resource we now need to upgrade our weapons. Starry Shell is the resource you'll need to upgrade both Rakota and Sahad's weapon. There goes the second one. You can save in between these fights, guys, if you're not confident in doing them. I think I drop a safety save on the last one just in case, because knowing my luck, I'll do them all perfectly, and then the last one will clip me. And stuff like that. Did you see how when he slammed his hammer down, it said 48 damage numbers? And you look down at my life bar and you're like, did I just get a hit? And you realise it's your team. It's your fucking team getting hit. And it makes it look like you're getting hit. I hate that. But you can tell in this game when you get hit, because a lot of the time it's a knockdown. So it's really useful. And I think in future, if I can make it work, I think what I would do if I was going to do a project like this again, I would use the cheat engine to put my character's HP threshold to 1, meaning that everyone has 1 HP at all times regardless of what happens, and that way I would be able to turn the trainer off, and then the enemies would kill me instantly, and it would make retrying faster maybe. Like, I'd like it if there was just a faster retry option, because there really should be. Even if it's some kind of code on the buttons or something. Like, hold both the shoulder buttons and then press A 5 times. Just anything. I would love that. Like, and it sounds like such a small thing that you might not even understand why anybody could care about it, but it would save me so much time in some of the things I decide to do. Because at the end of the day, video games are just time expenditure, aren't they? And the least amount of time spent doing something you don't want to do is a really good thing. Because I love fighting bosses. I love fighting enemies. I love the combat. I love the encounters. I just hate having to reset. I hate that I have to do stupid fucking shit to get back into the game to try again. It just really frustrates me. This enemy here is pretty funny too, this tower. When it fires its initial spread of flames, it's a smiley face. I'm not sure if I've mentioned that, but it is quite interesting. And then here we have the puzzles. So this is one of the more intensive dungeons for puzzles. All you have to do is move these statues to face the same direction that the doorway statues are facing. So in this case, it's facing towards the screen. And then it opens the doorway, and so on and so forth, and you have to repeat this a few times. Once again, this enemy here, whose name is not popping up for some reason, I think it's because the characters are talking, he is the only enemy in this zone that's going to give you an issue. He's just an asshole. Do I have to normally attack him? This is weird. Traditionally, when you attack things, the name and the drops pop up, but when I'm attacking him, it doesn't do that. I've not noticed that. I wonder why it's not doing it. Ooh, Dragon Crest Stone. That is the next resource you're going to need for upgrading your weapons. And it's a pain in the ass to get until you get later on in the game too. Once you get to the Octa and the Path of the Eras, it's going to be way easier to get that resource, but as it stands, getting it now is kind of ahead of the curve. So it's nice that they let you do that. But keep on turning the statues, enjoying the awesome music. The boss coming up at the end of this video is called Basilius, and I hate him. This is one of my least favourite bosses in the game. For some reason, the developers have this fetish for making you destroy things before you fight bosses. They do it mostly for final bosses in the Ys series. They just have this great fondness for it, and it's something that I'm not particularly that keen of. I don't like having to do a superfluous task before I fight a boss, and this is no different. At the beginning of the fight coming up, Basilius is going to spawn a bunch of skulls, and you have to kill them all before you can start engaging him. And what happens is, while the skulls attack you, so does the boss. So you're dodging 2 sets of attacks that aren't too bad to kill each of these skulls, and then when the skulls have been killed, you can go into the central area, start fighting the boss, and then throughout that battle he's going to spawn more skulls. And if you're using the Force Edge, you can generally kill them and they're not too much of a problem. But it's really easy to start wailing on the boss, see a massive opportunity for damage, and then get bitten by a skull that you didn't see, or get bit by a skull that attacked you through the boss, things like that. There are a whole host of opportunities for really stupid shit to happen. So it just makes a fight that would be relatively simple, be a bit of a pain in the ass, because every time you take a cheeky hit or you die, you have to go through the skull phase again. And in my mind, if you do the skull phase, you've pretty much done the boss. Because when the boss turns up, all he does is very telegraphed melee hits, and then he starts summoning more skulls, which you can use as an opportunity to damage him, or just get rid of the skulls. And then he uses a move that he charges for ages, that sucks you in, and then releases a massive AoE. And at that point, if you haven't killed the boss, you'll have to guard it, and guarding it's quite tricky, but if you do guard it, you'll kill the boss. So it's one of those things where the fight is so formulaic and so sequenced, that as long as you're doing the right amount of damage, you're not going to have too much of an issue with it other than getting to the phase where you have to kill him. And it's just annoying. And of course, if you're trying to do it without being hit, that's where the true annoyance comes from. Just beating this boss is not a problem at all. He's too weak, he's too telegraphed, and he's too, formulaic for him to be truly challenging. But doing it without getting clipped is just annoying. And it's unfortunate too, because I do think he looks really cool. He's a really cool looking boss, and I wish there was more to him. I wish he didn't fight like a bitch, is probably the biggest thing. If he had a ton of different moves and all kinds of different setups, it'd be really cool. But instead, he runs away, he can actually move out of a radius where you can hit him, because he's a bitch like that, and then he summons enemies. Runs away, everything about him is designed for a player like me to dislike. So Basilius, you get a big thumbs down, but I still like how you look. And I'm still going to shit on your chest, because that's my job in these videos. I find it interesting too that this dungeon has all of these strange purple pillars. It's a strange little edifice, isn't it? Some kind of glowing amethyst edifice, and it just doesn't do anything. It's just a bit of flair for the level. And these precarious walkways leading to burn medicine, which I don't know if the fire breath from the skulls burns you, but I'm almost certain that the fire move that Basilius does will. Big ol' active hitbox, massive rolling thunder of flames. You can jump from here to that left-hand side, but the problem with doing it is there are times when your input gets the plunge attack instead of the aerial combo, and if you do that, you'll have to probably swap out to Ricotta to make it. Like, Laxia can be really good for crossing gaps as well, because she has a stinger move where she thrusts herself forward, and as long as you've got the SP, and you've got the right amount of height, you can cover some serious distance. I'd like to know, though, why I get the plunge attack instead of the normal attacks, because in my mind, plunge attack should only ever be after a roll. I feel like that's how it should work, but in ways, from just playing the game, it feels like any moment where Adol has perhaps downward momentum, he will do the stab instead of the normal attack, which I'm not the biggest fan of confusing inputs like that. It's not my favourite thing. It is timing based though, so you can understand it, because skillful timing is something that these games like to reward, and it's the reason why I love them so fondly. So, get your SP, continue onwards. There's a jump here that you can do by just simply rolling. I don't know why I tried to attack. I was hoping to do the standard slash, but I did the downward slash. It's one of the first world problems that you have in this title. And I did it again. You see, like, it doesn't make sense. I don't understand why you stab when you should do the aerial combo. It's really bizarre. Luckily, it's an easy jump, and we get a warrior wrist, which is actually a pretty cool item. It's not quite as good as the one we'll get later on, but such is the hierarchy of items that you get in these games. Here is your crystal signifying the boss is coming up. So there's your save, get your right equipment on, do the right things, and then take him on. So this is Basilius. Basilius begins the fight the same way every single time. He summons a bunch of skulls to surround him. You have to run around killing them, and while you do this, Basilius is going to attack you. So use his moves to give you a flash guard, and then take the flash guard into your attacks to kill the skulls really quickly. Once all the skulls are dead, you'll get a cutscene that shows a platform allowing you access to the central area, and then once you go into the centre, you can start whooping his ass. The skulls usually are quite passive, but every so often you'll get one that wants to be a hero and starts doing stupid moves like that one did. That just then, I was trying to guard that in the middle of it. I had the iframes coming out of the normal guard, and for some reason I wasn't getting anything, and it was a kind of a scary moment, but we did okay. And then here is the boss. So he has 2 horizontal hits and a big overhead that's quite slow. This is all he can do. This is the only move he will do, these 2 hits and the big overhead. Once you hit him too much, he'll start summoning enemies, and the enemies start coming ambiently like they just did then. So right now, the enemies are just going to show up for the sake of it, so just keep on wailing on the boss, and then after a little while, be careful though, do you see that enemy shooting orbs at me from off screen? You're not even going to get a chance to see it because I think I kill him too fast. So, make sure you use your extra skill when his HP is low, and make sure you get the crits for it. And then after this, the boss is going to run away and start summoning his big attack, and hopefully you can hit him before you have to dodge it. Because if you have to dodge it, it's a very particular timing. But aggression is key here, guys. If you can be aggressive, you can kill this boss incredibly quickly. Things to watch out for. He will move away from you if you don't damage him as quickly as I did and start spawning enemies. If you just kill the enemies, you can deal with that phase and then continue to fight him, and then he'll move away and start using his super attack. And just be warned, you will get fired upon by the skulls from off screen. It's just the way the game works. It's annoying, it's stupid, it happens.